Because what?
Correct. Well, there's.
Because Zachary's working at.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome. At this time, if you're able to rise, please do so for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. At this time, I will open up the first hearing and privilege of the floor. Anyone who would like to address the board, please just state your name, address, and adhere to the 5-minute policy that the board has set.
My name is Lisa Strohmeyer. I live at 7 Yorkshire Court in Glenville. I am the varsity volleyball coach. I've been coaching for, this is my 8th season. I would just like to speak briefly about spectators quickly. So Section 2 as a whole, it is not directly a Scotia issue. Section 2 has come to the coaches and said that we have had an increase in negativity in the stands, and it's not just students, it is spectators across the board. We have experienced a few games where this has been an issue. It can be very frustrating as the coach to try and coach and manage spectators at the same time. I have been working with the Booster Club to try and come up with solutions to create more fan base, but also create a positive environment where they know how to cheer and they are effective in it. I'm hoping that we can all work together to continue the conversations, something that we have come up with. And our volleyball team is actually going to be one of the first to plan this. We have volunteered to go to the girls field hockey alumni game in October, and I have given my athletes a chance to come up with a theme, work with the team to understand the terminology of the game, the things that are allowed to be cheered and cheers that they already do, and then clear cheers with the girls on the team so they know that it's acceptable for that sport. I'm hoping that we can have more discussions. I would like to talk further with Mr. Rockwell about this. I'm hoping that someone will be able to maybe attend that game just to witness how it goes and see, like almost like a test run, see if it works, and if we can come up with some kind of schedule and we can keep that open to coaches where they are also signing their teams up, so we are getting more student involvement, but also teaching kids how to cheer for each other. I think a lot of the kids right now are at a slight disadvantage than years past because the older ones that would be in charge of that fan base did not have the role models that they would have normally had because they would have been freshmen and sophomores when COVID came through and we were not having spectators at that time. So they're kind of coming in and I think doing the best that they can, but I think they're just kind of winging it, where they would have normally had that guidance from older students in the past. So I'm hoping that we can work together and we can kind of spread knowledge about other sports, get more involvement, and teach kids how to be positive and how to cheer and how to support one another in an effective way.
Thank you. Lisa, I just have a quick question for you. I'll break tradition here a little bit. All right. I understand it's hard to coach and reprimand. I understand. So do you not have chaperones at these games?
We do have chaperones, yes.
Okay.
There have been certain circumstances where our chaperones are split depending on where the large number of students are. And I have been an extra support for them to try and teach them, because our spectators don't always know our sport. And there are certain rules that go with volleyball that don't necessarily go with other sports, like not talking during a serve, which is kind of unusual. So at one point, I had actually talked to a student that I had known, and I kind of put him in charge of the student section, and I said, because I know he's come to the games for his siblings, and I kind of put him in charge and said, you know the rules, you know the cheers we do, you know, make sure it's positive, do your best to, you know, keep everybody on the same page. And the game that we did that with, it worked out wonderful. We had a very positive fan base. We had a lot of cheers. It's difficult for one or two chaperones when students aren't always where they belong, or there's just a large number of students. We have been typically getting roughly 30, 40 students at most. They all kind of so it's going to be difficult for them. So I just act as an extra support when I feel it's needed.
Thank you.
Good evening. Aaron Eggs, 28 Hetherington Street, right here in Scotia. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Scotia-Glenville athletic parents. There seems to be a growing concern pertaining to Jamie and Rockhill, the athletic director across the variety of sports. Tonight, I'd like to get the ball moving to set up a specific meeting for parents to express their opinions and experiences with Mr. Rockhill. There needs to be a discussion, the topics would include from the parents, targeted discipline of students, inconsistency in enforcing rules and regulations, abusive conversations to parents, dismissive and defensive responses when requesting details pertaining to incidents and some of his decisions that he's made. Most recently, seems to be a targeted round of knee-jerk discipline based on hearsay of a chaperone towards a few football players out of many who attended the volleyball game last Thursday on 9/28. All prior to conducting an investigation which should have included conversations with multiple parents who attended the game and then emailed the following day. Most likely, if we can, I'd like to cordially invite all of the board members to attend Friday night's homecoming game, and I would encourage them to have a casual conversation with the random families attending to hear their honest thoughts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Of course I'm getting up. Steve Sweeney, I live on Swan Street. First, congratulations, Rick. It's good to see you here. At least for me, with this whole volleyball issue that occurred this weekend, I wasn't so upset at the players initially of what happened in the scenario. I know I've had a few times to talk to Hal, I don't know, at football games or something. You'll probably remember better than me. The issue I have is with the code of conduct in sporting. We have varsity players on the football team that are cursing. We have a modified kid who curses, tells his coach he's an effing this, effing that, throwing punches in the program. We have several of these instances. Don't know anything about JV, don't have a kid on the JV team. Maybe it happens at the JV football level, I don't know. But at the levels that I watch, this is what happens all the time. We have a coach on the varsity team who is constantly berating officials, calls them an F word, berates the students. I wouldn't say berates them, but curses at the students. So we're allowing all of this and have been allowing this for 2 years. And now we're going to get upset over what happened at a volleyball game. I understand that might be a big deal for the volleyball team and show a lack of decorum with those students. But you can't sit here and say that that's improper and then let everything else go. I mean, these kids are starting every weekend in these sports. I watch every practice. Hal will tell you I go to every practice. I go to 5-6 games in the youth. I go to 3-4 games in the youth. I go to every game I can. It is absolutely disgusting to me to see the way these kids act, get rewarded by it, and then we punish kids for something they might have accidentally done once. To suspend them and to do all these other things and to make them cry and to have a head coach after the game say, hey, we would have won this game if it wasn't for you guys going to the volleyball game. That is what our head coach circled the team Friday night and told these players, where they were leaving the locker room crying out of the field house. Every one of them, Hal was there as well, every one of them had to report to the head coach and explain themselves. Even my son, who was at a field hockey game and had nothing to do with this, and was getting, why were you there? Why were you there? Why were you questioned and got brought down? This is absolutely ridiculous. It needs to come from the top down, and unfortunately, we have an athletic director that doesn't enforce the code of conduct unless it suits him. If it suits him and makes him look good, he'll enforce it. If it suits him and makes everybody look bad, he won't do anything about it. So I think that needs to be addressed immediately. And I'm not dismissing what they did at a volleyball game. I know a lot of them didn't know the rules and they got a little rambunctious. But, you know, you also can't have an administrator at the game curse at the kids, which is what happened. It goes both ways, and I'm not excusing them, but we need to address this and address this immediately. I mean, like I said, this is every week with the same kids on varsity and modified, and again, just what I see. I'll be more than happy to send you guys names. I know you know who I'm talking about, but unfortunately it needs to be done. So, thank you.
Thank you. There's no one else that would like to address the board at this time. I will close the first hearing and privilege of the floor. Remind everybody that we do have a second one towards the end of our meeting. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Superintendent Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Talbot. I just want to talk a little bit tonight about the change in the state's approach to free and reduced lunch. Folks might remember that during COVID, we were providing free breakfast and lunch to students. We were assisting families by delivering food at home. And then all of a sudden, or so it seemed, it just ended. What ended was our flexibility. So we were back under the old model, and frankly, our school district was not at that point under the state's laws, state's guidance, considered poor enough to be able to offer free lunch and breakfast to everyone. However, there has been some legislative movement. They have dropped the percentage. And Mr. Giaquinto, could you talk a bit about what you're doing with your folks to get us ready for that?
Well, when the USDA dropped the percent from 40% to 25%, there's paperwork that we're submitting to SCD to apply for this, what they call a waiver. So we should have that in the next few days and hopefully get approved, and kids would eat for free.
So will they need to do anything in terms of qualifying, or will that be gone through?
Well, what's in the paperwork that we're submitting? No, they won't have to. Everybody would be qualified.
Great. And is that both breakfast and lunch?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
From my understanding.
And do you have any idea about the turnaround once we submit the paperwork?
It's the government, so probably, but we'll be on top of it.
Thank you. And that's it for me, Mr. Talbot. Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is our report update. CAPSPA, there is nothing new for me to report at this time. Go figure on CAPSPA. Ms. Furnish on legislation.
Susan already covered it, right? So,
Beautiful. PTA Council.
we have not had any meetings since last week.
Audit Committee. We just had our audit meeting where we had a detailed report with our auditor, Amy, who is here in attendance tonight to present this to us. We'll get to that in a moment. The audit committee reviewed everything that's in that report, and we are happy to bring that to the board tonight, as we will get to in the next item number with Amy here for us for questions and a presentation. Board of Education Policy Committee.
I've talked with Jill, and she is getting together everything that we did last year so that we can give a copy of the whole policy, of all the policies to Kimmy, and she will be able, then she and I will be able to sit down, and the next thing we are going to do is go through, make sure we have all the policies that are required by law. So as soon as we have the copy for Kimmy, then we'll be able to sit down and go through them and check out everything.
Thank you. Board of Education Goals, policy was one. Next is Superintendent's Committee, Panel. What are we calling it? To be determined?
To be determined. I'm working with LB Hannes from Tangible Development, who has been shepherding us through our diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And we are putting together an initial charge and some plans for that group, which I think probably this year will meet quarterly.
Beautiful. Our other Board of Education goal, I have reached out to Mayor Bucciferro and Supervisor Ketzley to try to get a meeting together to kind of framework what our idea is. They've both been a little busy lately, so that is hopefully on the docket next week. So as soon as they get any updates there, I will let everybody know. Obviously, not sure if there's anything with the budget to update yet.
First fiscal projection will be end of October, so we'll give you a look at 23, 24 then.
Beautiful. All right, moving on, as we have item number 6 here. So Amy is here, so we will get a little presentation from Amy to go over the first audit. Audit committee met before this is going. Right ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. So as Mr. Talbot mentioned, I just met with the audit committee and went over the financial statement in significant detail prior to this meeting. So I'll just kind of talk about a couple of the highlights of the audit report and then open it up if there's any questions. You all have a final copy of the audit. What we do as your external auditor is we come in, we take a look at your controls, we assess the risk at the organization, we get the books and records, we verify and test the balances to come up with the financial statements that you see. It's a 76-page document that in that is going to be the opinions from the auditors, the financial statements of management, as well as some federal award programs and extra classroom. For those of you that have seen the audit report in the past, we're set up in the same format as it has been. There's no significant accounting changes, nothing that would change anything. So the first opinion in the auditor's report is pages 1 through 3. That's an unmodified opinion. That's the highest opinion we give as a profession and what the district has received in the past. So what that says is the financial statements present fairly. After that, we have management's discussion and analysis. It's supposed to be a brief snapshot, so a reader could pick up the financials and read these 10 pages and see what happened during the year. The one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these numbers is some of the numbers are presented on a long-term basis. You have your long-term assets and some of your long-term liabilities, which isn't necessarily how the district operates. You guys have your general fund, special aid fund, school lunch fund, etc. So looking at those numbers can be a little skewing. But there's also in the management's discussion analysis a chance for management to add some narrative. So there's some good descriptions in there about changes from budget, factors affecting the district going forward. Then after that, we have the financial statements. They're set up in 2 formats. The first being that long-term presentation. It has your long-term building assets. It has your long-term liabilities. And then the second set are the funds, the general fund, the school lunch fund, the special aid fund, capital fund, and that's really how the district operates. So looking at those pages, the fund-based financial statements starting on 17 and 19, those are the most important pages, I feel, to kind of look at to see where the fiscal health is of the district and where your fund balance lies. And then after that, we have the footnotes. Those give more description to the district, to its accounting policies, and gives a lot more explanation for some of those long-term numbers. There's a significant number of pages dedicated to some of those long-term liabilities and assets. Then we have some supplemental information that's required to be in there by state ed, OSC. Those are schedules that compare your budget to actuals, do some other calculations, your capital projects funds, et cetera. Then the next part of the audit is the audit of the federal programs. So because a district spends more than $750,000 of federal money, we have to do a compliance audit with your grants. So we looked at your ARP and your CRISA, your COVID funding this year, as well as the special education cluster. So we have to look at the grants on a rotating basis each year. We looked at those. We had no findings, no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses, so that as well as a clean opinion over the grants. Then after the grants, we have the audit of the extra classroom activity funds. They are required to be in the audit because New York State Education Department says the board has fiscal oversight, so we have that audit, and that's on a cash basis. So that report has all the clubs listed and the activity associated with the clubs. And that's really just the overview of the financial statements. The business office does a phenomenal job of getting us everything we need, getting it to us timely, and it makes the process go very smooth, and as you can see with all the clean opinions throughout the financial statements.
Beautiful. Anybody have any questions?
I do, just generally speaking, in your audit of this, did you find, other than what you put in the plan letter, did you find anything unusual that we need to be concerned about?
No, that management letter comment in regards to the extra classroom are our only comments. And the extra classroom is one of those things that has a lot of different regulations around it. So the students have to pay sales tax, charge sales, sales tax, do fundraisers, all that, profit and losses for those, et cetera. So there's a lot of more rules around those. But other than that, everything else was clean, and we had no other communication to the board that needed to be done. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, at this time, I will accept the motion for the auditor's report for 22-23 financial report.
I'll move that we accept the auditor's report as submitted, and I will also move that we accept the audit correction action plan as submitted.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. Any more discussion on either one?
I just have a question, because I'd like to ask those who are actually on the audit committee and got to hear the whole review. Were you satisfied with what you heard during the review?
Yeah, absolutely, or I wouldn't have been okay with tonight bringing it to all of us for a vote, so, yeah, absolutely. You know, every year, Drew and his team do an excellent job. We have the highest ratings that any auditor could ever give. Amy's team has been brutally honest in the past with us, and again, we're very fortunate to have Drew and his team.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstain? So moved. Thank you. If I get a motion to approve the district-wide safety plan for 2023 and 2024.
I'll motion to approve the district-wide safety plan for 2023 to 2024.
Thank you. And second.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on this?
I have a question. The recommendation is to ensure all the clubs are following proper requirements. How is that being done? Because I noticed in the extracurricular, a lot of the clubs are run by the students, and they are the treasurers. I know that for a fact because my son this year for the first time is the treasurer of the class of 2026. Is there a training, or does something happen for them?
Drew, would you like to address the training since your folks have been?
Fiscal training?
Training to make sure that the clubs are doing what they need to be doing with respect to the activity funds. Because a lot of them are students.
Yes, we bring in a Questar 3 auditor, and they do an annual training, which the advisors, the students, the principals attend. And then we actually go over all the regulations and pamphlets that go with running a club. The trouble is that students change every year, and so do the advisors, but all in all, the audit on the ECAF, which is board oversight, it's not me, very satisfied with the auditors are. In fact, we're better this year than the previous year, they said, so I give that a lot to the principals, the advisors, and the students for accepting the training and enhancing their skill set. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstain? So moved. Motion for item number 9 to approve the MOA by and between Scotia-Glenville Central School District and the Scotia-Glenville Administrators Association.
I'll make a motion to, approve MOA between the Scotia-Glenville Central School District and Scotia-Glenville Administrative Association as submitted.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Emily. Discussions on this one? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Or abstained? So moved. Item number 10. At this time, we will discuss the New York State School Board Association resolutions. We will also select a voting delegate as well as an alternate for the business meeting. I believe it is October 16th at 4 o'clock, I believe. Virtual. So everyone in front of them has the answers that we all submitted. So at this time, what we will do is we will go through the ones that we do not have a majority, or anyone that we had asked individually to discuss. The first two are items 5 and 6, but before the meeting, I was told that we were okay with those. So if there's any other discussions on those, since those were both 5-0, we'll move on to resolution number 15. So we'll chat about discussion points on item number 15.
Well, it might sound really nice for schools to provide childcare. I think it's not the way that we should go. We have enough things that we are worrying about right now without having to worry about setting up and running a daycare. And the other thing that we need to think about is liability. The liability of the school district if we are running a daycare would be just a huge liability if anything would happen. And it sounds great. It sounds good to have, people be able to bring their kids right to the school. But I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think that with the liability and with the space issues and with all of the requirements that would be necessary to set up a daycare, that we really should be putting our emphasis on our kids that we have now, K to 12, and their classes and curriculum.
Yeah, I was opposed to this one as well, based off of the space and the staffing of it.
I was opposed, as much as I love white care and everything that comes through our schools, one of the things is, do we have the space, do we have the faculty, and our insurance, but there's a lot of parts that hasn't been explained in this, how it would work and who's responsible for what, so it's kind of a vague platform to put out just yet without more details. So I think that if I had more details on how this would work, I'd be for it, but it just opens us up for a can of worms.
I voted for it because it says that it would authorize school districts. It's not saying it's going to require school districts. So I didn't want to hold back other school districts that may be interested in pursuing this. But at this point, the way I'm reading it, I don't read it that it's requiring us to do so. So simply because we're authorizing doesn't mean we have to move up forward on that path. And that's why I voted for it.
That's a good point.
Kim, one of the things I find is that when you give somebody the right to do it, then there becomes a whole lot of pressure and problems with everybody expecting it to be done.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that. I would not have that expectations. I think we would be able to explain it very clearly like you did as to why we may not be willing to do childcare. But I don't think we should stymie other districts from having that opportunity if they're able to handle the capacity.
We haven't heard from the other side yet.
It says must be able to open.
I agree with Kim. It depends on the district. New York State's pretty big, so I'm sure this mostly falls in place for the downstate New York City area more than up here, or any of us.
I could agree with that. I could see that we don't have to.
Could I make a suggestion that we let whoever is our voting delegate on this one listen to the discussion of what's brought up and what's being said by the others, and vote however they feel at that point is the appropriate way to vote.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Because sometimes stuff comes up in these discussions that you never thought about or you never realized, and so it can change the opinion very much.
Yep.
All right.
It sounds to me, can I just add one piece? It sounds to me that nobody wants it required. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah.
On everybody's part? So if that is where the direction it appears to be heading, I think we can all say that whoever the delegate is should vote against it.
But if it's not, then I could go, yes, I could do
Okay.
that, yeah.
All right, so item number 15, we will,
Yeah, because I don't know if you know about it, this either, is that people can put amendments to these from the floor, and that can change drastically the meaning or the way that it goes.
I would agree with that, definitely.
okay, the next one on the list would be Resolution 20. We have 4 yeses and 2 undecideds with discussion or comment on item number 20.
If I can comment, so I was undecided on that because it reads as though it would eliminate the Regents exams entirely and replace them with the state exams. But once upon a time, we had both. I'm just wondering if this passes, will it just do away with the Regents exam entirely? And why couldn't we have state exams and then those who wanted to take the Regents exams could take them?
Yeah,
'Cause
I
this,
agree.
this sounds like it's just totally getting rid of the Regents.
Yeah, that's the way I read it also, Emily. And I hate to admit it, but I don't know much about state exams. I wasn't familiar with state exams at all until I moved to New York and learned about Regents exams. And that's all I know about. So I don't know how a state exam would compare to a Regents exam. You know, are they the same difficulty? Are they easier? And just because 43 other states do it doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right way to go.
Coming from a state that does have state exams, I never had Regents until I moved to New York, and I'm like, what is this Regents thing? The state exams are more set to levels. So the state that I come from has college preparatory classes. So you have general to AP classes in college preparatory. So those state exams, for them to get their points to be able to graduate, are based on levels. So the AP exam is not going, state exam is not going to be the same as a general studies exam for somebody who's in college preparatory class. And then the other section they have is general studies. So those students who don't plan on going to college, but they are still taking their English, math to get their credits. But that state exam is based on the general studies. So it's a little more customized so that there's opportunity for students to be able to pass. That's just something to do from the state that I come from that they do it. So the Regents exam, even when I'm applying for college for my first son, they were like, we don't need to see those Regents, it doesn't matter, Regents exams don't matter. So I think that's where they're going with this, is to kind of give more opportunities for kids to be able to get their credits on a different level.
I guess I'd rather see it laid out a little more before we start pushing for it, explaining what they would be like and how they would go.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not even sure if this rationale is accurate, because I grew up in Virginia and my family is still in Virginia, and I don't remember, and they didn't have, my niece just graduated last year. There wasn't a requirement to take a state exam. So I'm not even sure if the rationale is accurate, at least with respect to the states involved.
Well, I know Ohio put them in just a few years ago because I have family in Ohio, but
Yeah, my niece just graduated
if
last
this
year
is
though,
a-
she didn't have to take,
more of a
yeah.
thing that's more current than stuff that's been around for a long time.
It also says we're one of only 7 states that require students to pass exams to receive a high school diploma. So no other states they don't require final exams? I don't, that doesn't,
Final state exams are for Regents exams.
right, but underneath, under number 1, it says, we're one of the only states that require students to pass exams to receive a diploma.
Yeah, so other states will have final exams written by the professor or teacher themselves.
Right, but that's still an exam. This
But
says
it's not-
exams.
Yeah, but I think they're referring to state.
Well, then they should clarify that, because it sounds like there's just no exam required.
So then I would suggest on this one,
Yeah.
we do the same that we did on number 15, whoever the voting delegate is, listen to the discussion about that and see if that rationale is the same as far as the region exam or state exam. If that's okay with everybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, thank you, Emily. The next is item 25.
What number was that, 25?
The next one that we're gonna get to is 25 here. And the reason that we are is because we do have a discussion comment on this one, if there was. I'm sorry?
Three?
Yeah,
Okay.
23, because we had the majority there, and then 25 would be the
Got
next
it.
one.
Got
We
it.
had 4 members vote no, 1 vote yes, and 1 was undecided. So if whoever would like to discuss that one.
Well, I talked with Kimmy about this today, and one of the things that she said really hit home and reinforced this to me was that there's a lot of people in that gap. You've got the people who would qualify by this, you've got the people who could pay for it, but you've got a whole lot of people in this center section who wouldn't be able to pay for their kids to do this. And if you eliminate all people because they're not on the free or reduced lunch, you know, there's an absolute cutoff for that free and reduced lunch. And I mean, now we're going to be different because they changed some of the laws, which may make a difference in here too. But I don't think you should eliminate that huge group in the middle who can't afford to pay for it, but whose kids could benefit greatly.
I know that we have families that we're cutting out such a big group, and until they bring that bar up for where you qualify, those middle income students don't have that opportunity. So either you get to go because you qualify, or you get to go because your parents can afford it, but that middle class group doesn't now get to go to preschool. So that's where my mindset was.
So we are all good on agreement on that one? Except for Brandon. Okay. Let's see, now we will move on to the fun part. So the next group of resolutions are the ones that New York State School Board Association are not recommending. So hopefully we all voted the same way, that yes, we support it, or no, we don't support it. And as we get right off the bat here, we had, let's see, which ones, Pam? We're at 35 and
Well, you got 33,
33.
34.
Right on the top. Right on page 26, so number 33. There was 1 undecided, 2 no's, 3 yeses on this one.
So what one are we on? 33 we're on?
We're on
30.
33.
Okay. So I guess my question would be, since everybody's still reading, what would be the negative side of having people review it and act on it instead of making things wait to be acted upon?
One thing I have found to be very true about the state, to ask them to do something promptly is like, may as well not waste your breath. it's, you know, and to have them do it like every month, they're gonna fall so far behind.
Well, I think the goal is if they're meeting every month, that they wouldn't fall behind because they're not having 6 months of stuff pile up.
But you know how many districts there are in the state? Over
Oh,
700?
I agree,
you know?
but it's kind of holding them accountable to follow through monthly so that you're not waiting for 6 months to hear back, and then now you've already had something happen, or you need to have that back so that you can do budgets, or, so that's what do they meet quarterly now? That's my question. Like, when do they meet? Like, is it just a free-for-all, or are we putting in place that they should meet like an audit committee or something every month?
Right, well, that's what we don't know, and that's why I didn't like the way that this is worded. Like Kim had mentioned on the other one, the wording was a little bit different. I didn't like that. As someone trying to get cash flow going here for over a year now,
Touche.
the response has been just staggering from the other powers to be. So I'm fine with holding them accountable to do that and agreeing with them, but I wasn't a fan of the way that they worded that.
And I don't disagree with that. That's why I was saying, where are we going here? Like, how long do they meet? Like, we don't know those.
Right. All right, so we have a majority on that one, but we wanted to discuss that one. As well as the next one, item number 34. That one was one that we had 3 and 3.
I'm sorry, can I just
Please.
point out that people who can't see it, I'm concerned, as the conversation we had last week, that we did not understand for and against, and I think it's interesting that when we suddenly get to the part where the ones that are not recommended, that our colors changed to half and half on this page. I don't think we're having the same understanding of what we're voting on, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
And that's what, as Pam had mentioned last week, that we're voting on the ones as a group. If we support the resolution, we say yes.
Yeah,
If
that's
we
why I
don't
voted
support the resolution, we vote no.
But do you find it interesting, though, that when we suddenly get to the section, the ones that are not recommended, that suddenly we're just kind of split half and half?
Not really, because I think all of us have our own different thoughts and
Okay, well,
things.
I just want to.
There's
Okay.
some on here that I don't agree with, so.
Authorizes them, but doesn't make it mandatory.
I know we had this problem last year,
Yeah.
I just
No, I think
want it was
all
clear.
of us to the right, that last from 33 down to 56. You're either for it or against it, just like the first 32, we vote yes that we like it, or we vote no, yeah, I know. I'll support you on that one. That's how we usually.
So here's a question on this, I'll move this discussion along. Does New York State require kindergarten, or, because it just says you authorize it, so not all New York State schools are having kindergarten, that you can pick or choose kindergarten, just jump to first? Parents can choose and just go to first?
Yep.
Okay.
Well,
That's what I thought, because this just says
we
that,
do a little evaluation before we just pencil first, but yes.
because the wording in this one also is odd, so that's why Kim and I were just discussing that, because it says it authorizes school board, so that's why we were kind of,
Yeah, well, this one says to make it mandatory.
Right, we're talking about the explanation as to why the
Oh,
resolutions
okay.
committee didn't choose to do it. Because there's already a law in place that authorizes school boards to make that decision. And I guess I thought the same thing. I mean, really financially, I think the district should have that opportunity to make that decision whether or not they should have kindergarten.
so are we changing 34 to a no? Is everybody agreeing with
anybody-
that?
Change their opinion?
I mean, I sort of agree with it. To a degree, we're not gonna force kids to go to school, but to have that social development and coming out of the house now, you're other kids, other friends. You wanna build that, social skills. But yeah, I mean, what's mandatory, to what degree? We don't know that, so maybe no for now.
Well, right now, mandatory attendance is ages 5 through the year in which you turn 16. So if you were going to mandate kindergarten. It could be that students start at 4, because it will be the year they turn 5, so kids who have a September, October, November birthday could still start school as 4-year-olds because they will be 5. So I think you are right in that, especially when you look at kindergarten now versus some of what kindergarten might have been 30 or 40 years ago. We do a lot of teaching in kindergarten and a lot of learning in kindergarten. I am familiar with this school district. They're in one of the poorer areas in New York State. I could understand why they would be pushing very hard to make it mandatory up in the North Country and get kids to school as soon as possible. But do we want, I think the question is, do you think it should be mandatory for every child in New York State?
I think, when you say that, it depends on the school district, right? Like, it depends on where you are. Or if you have more opportunities for preschool, and you can extend that preschool year out if they're not ready to go to kindergarten at 4. But then we're telling every school district that their children have to start at 4. Maybe they're not ready for the curriculum, because you have to admit the kindergarten curriculum is not like it used to be even 10 years ago. So that's where we have to make the decision. Are we saying all of New York State has to send their children, even if they're too young for kindergarten, they're not ready for it?
The thing I was concerned about, I'll be honest with you, I was very happy that we have kindergarten here, and my son loved it. I'm very concerned about unfunded mandates, and the way it reads right now, it reads like an unfunded mandate, where we have no clue where the money's going to be coming from it. So I feel for this district, but they could end up being the ones having to pay for the whole thing, and then where are they at that point in time? So the way it's written now is why I voted against it.
So I suggest that we put this one as the other two that we're undecided on, for the voting delegate to listen to the discussion on that one.
I can change my yes to a no.
Yeah, me too.
Okay,
Now
then
that I've
I will take back what I just said. We will vote that as a no then. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, moving on, we have, let's see, the next one is 5 and 4, so we're okay on those. 0, 1.
35 and 30.
35 and 36, we have a majority on both of those.
But they contradict 19.
I'm sorry?
They both contradict what we voted for 19. It's the one where they want you to study the electric vehicles and look into what it all means and what all the effect is going to be, that type of thing. And then they suddenly say here that they want to take and make it so that
They want a waiver for small and rural school districts from the law that mandates school vehicles all be zero emissions. So 19, we're approving or agreeing with them to start to study it, but then 35 and 36 from another small school district, I think they're in central New York, that are looking, they want to eliminate that, the mandates for only for small and rural school districts.
I think Drew, is it 2020, is it 2030 that we have to be, all schools have to have buses? So,
For 35.
Electric buses.
so if we're saying, yes, we want you to study it, like, I think we're saying, yes, we want you to study it right now, but no, put the mandate in until we have the studies. I think that's where some are going with that. When you're looking at the numbers on there.
So the majority of us, according, if we answered them all the right way, agreed with that the small and rural school districts should get a pass. But that's the way this reads.
We'd have to buy those buses, they're shutting the schools down. Like, how can they afford that, you know?
I would hope that when they do the study, they would find that out.
That's
That
the thing,
because
I
they're
wanna see.
going to, they're, you know, if you've got to drive 45 minutes, it may be too long to go out 45 minutes and come back 45 minutes and have this bus still have a charge. And that's what I don't think they've really looked into. And I think that's why this study of it is so important. Because there are some places that may not even, it may hurt the grid, it may put the grid down if they have all these buses pulling all this electricity to charge them up. There are a whole lot of issues that I haven't gotten any decent explanations for.
See, I didn't see 19 contradicting with 35 and 36 because in my mind, these studies, who knows how long the study's going to take, these laws could already be in effect by the time these,
That's
in
what
fact,
I'm
they may be waiting for the law to take effect to see true numbers, true statistics, and all of that. So in the interim, some school boards are being proactive with respect to asking for a waiver already or just repealing it out entirely. So that was why I voted for the study. I voted for the waiver for small and rural, but I did not vote for it as a whole. I do think 35 and 36 conflict with each other. So that's why I voted differently. I voted yes for 35, but I voted no for 36.
Mine's the same.
All right, so we're okay on those two because we do have a
Yep.
majority on both
Yeah.
of those. All right, moving on to number 39. 39, we are split right down the middle at 3-3. That has to do with school board supports law requirement for board training, 6 hours. I voted no for that until you tell me who's going to train. Who's going to train us? And what are we going to be trained on? So that, to me, there's just, it's a broad stroke of this is what we want and we're going to vote yes for it or no for it without any more information.
I guess I was more along the lines of, I care less about who and what. What are you training? We already have to take that, the
Right.
training, the mandatory training, that's pretty extensive, you know, when we first start out. What more, I mean, if there's updates in the law, I definitely would be interested in that, but I don't think it's gonna take 6 hours just to do it. So I was interested in it, and that's why I voted against it.
If it said that they strongly recommended it, I could be for it. But if they're mandating it, because there's a lot out there that's available, you know, that NISBA puts on and that type of thing, and,
But who's gonna pay for it? Are we gonna pull that out of our budget? You know?
well, then you've got that too, the funding issue.
So I would switch that to a no.
I'm sorry?
I would switch that to a no.
I'll switch mine to a no also.
Yeah, so,
Thank you all. The next one would be 43, I believe. Let's see here.
So I think on this one, I think we need a little more details on how this affects the tiers.
Right.
So is there a point where the tiers, you know, we're asking tier 1 through 4 to be 5 and 6 to join them? But how does that affect the levels and why would this make a huge difference?
And the fiscal implications of this are extensive. And I say this as a tier 6 state employee, so I know. There's a reason why they added a tier 6. I mean, not personally like it, but I understand why they did it. Because the financial implications between a tier 4, 1 through 4, and a tier 6, it's
Big.
quite extensive, yeah.
It's big.
Emily. Mr. Singh, do you have any comments on this one?
I thought, this would help retain more teachers, see the future, say, okay, I'll retire here, I have a good pension when I leave. So that's my thought behind that.
I was thinking the same thing. I think it says that, and I think that's part of their argument, if I remember. I also admit that I kind of got a little cross-eyed on this, and maybe I didn't fully understand it, but the rationale sounded really good to me, so I could be swayed.
Yeah, I think in the explanation was the cost impact for the districts and to BOCES. That's what they, in their explanation, is why they didn't want to support this one. They don't explain who's going to pay for it, just saying that it is going to impact the school and BOCES. And this could be another one, listen to the discussion. Do they have examples? Do they have any communication with that as far as how is it going to affect us? What's the dollar amount that's going to affect us? And how are they going to be able to help recruit and maintain? So I'm okay to table this one to the delegate if everyone is. Since we're at 3-3. Yeah, Pam?
Yeah, I mean, I was a no on it just because of financial
Correct.
problems. We're already having trouble meeting our budgets. Next year's going to be even worse. Plus, I know NICET is working on this very diligently. And I think they're the ones that should be working on it because it really affects very highly all of those all the people in NICET. But I'm not sure that it's NISBA's place to try and do something that will cost their districts a lot more money.
All right, on to 44. 3 noes and undecided 2 yeses.
I don't think that we need the state coming up with more, developing our curriculum.
Yeah,
It's fine if they say, we want you to cover climate change. It's not fine with me if they develop the curriculum and tell me this is what I have to teach.
Correct.
That's why I was undecided. I agree. It sounds a little too,
Direct.
mandated. Yeah, just,
yeah, the state's gonna come up with a new thing that our teachers have to teach it that way, but maybe that's not the way to do it.
No.
It doesn't give them freedom, so I'm a no on that one.
And what would we lose to add this in?
We're saying we're not against having a climate control curriculum, but it's the states are going to develop it themselves and require it. So,
No, but what I'm saying is if they end up doing a whole curriculum on it, who knows what we'd have to cut out in order to fit their curriculum
Exactly.
in, is what I'm saying.
exactly.
Well, the issue is they don't tell they don't tell you that here. What would be cut out?
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't say
Why
what
is
you're
the
gonna
school
lose.
board association saying that versus SED?
Yes, it's a no.
Oh, no, I'm changing mine to no.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that one is a no. Excuse me. The next one I believe is number 50. 50 is 3 yeses, 2 noes, and an undecided on that one.
we had this same discussion last year, if I remember, and because I think there was some question about whether it would go K through 12, it's an all or nothing. It's like if we oppose it totally K through 12, because I think we had said maybe we would be more persuaded if it started in the later grades, and I think that we had recommended that they modify that.
And they still haven't told us what that sexuality education would be. There's no, they haven't developed it, so it's just saying that they're just gonna make it. And so we haven't read that, so I can't in good faith.
No, this says it's gonna oppose anything. It could be a 2-minute discussion, or it could be a 2-day class. They're just saying whatever it is, we're opposing it.
Yeah, but you don't even know what it is.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah. So how can
How do
we
you-
say we're gonna oppose something we have no idea what it is to begin with?
They want us to oppose it in grades K through 12.
Right.
But you don't know what it is, so I was like, no, because I don't know what it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's what that was the same thing. Explain it to us.
I'm the same way, it's too broad.
It's too broad of a stroke. Right. All right,
So are we changing 50 to no?
we'll change 50 to,
Yes, to oppose it, to not.
we oppose, yes.
So it's a yes.
51. So 51, we were right down.
I'm sorry, can we go back to 50? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with this. This is saying, this is a resolution that the board association will oppose any legislation. I thought it should be a no, we're not supporting this resolution.
No, we don't want,
We don't want to have a resolution that says we're going to oppose whatever the legislation is, right? So it should be a no.
It should be a no.
Yeah.
I thought that's what we decided.
I was gonna say, I thought that's what we should, yeah. we
Somebody
switched
said
that word.
yes.
yeah, it's not a yes, yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
so it's a
No.
no.
Right.
All right, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
That's one of those tricky ones.
All right, on to 51. Again, we're split right down the middle, as well as 52, both of them.
I think on the other one, we said we were advocating to keep the regions, right? Is that what we did on the other one?
I thought the other one was more, we just weren't sure what the state exams were going to be.
Right.
This one's saying to advocate to keep. I am not a fan of Regents exams, so that's why I voted no.
And I feel that social studies is a very important part of our curriculum, and that we really should be supporting it and keeping it in the curriculum. We shouldn't suddenly cut out world history or government, but that we should keep.
I don't think it's saying to cut that out. I think that it's saying the Regents is safe. So we have a student who's not a good test taker or has trouble with the Regents, and we get to tell them they don't get to graduate because they didn't pass their history Regents.
Why not? We do that for math and English.
But that's what I'm saying. This one is,
Science.
but this one's just particular to history, so that's why I use history.
Social studies is, I feel.
But it's not
social
saying,
studies is important.
social studies is a common core. We're not going to get rid of social studies, but
It sounds like it should be two different resolutions almost.
I agree
Like
with you
The first
100%.
one sounds like we don't want to cut social studies, and then the second one part says we want to keep regions.
Right.
I feel like it's two.
Yeah, if it was just the first sentence, I would totally vote for it. It's the second sentence that I don't like. I agree.
So I'll change my, I should have read that more clearly. I'll change my yes to no. If we're gonna, unless they want to separate those into two different resolutions.
So that's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
It may be split into two different resolutions.
Right, so let's put number 51,
So
listen
let the delegate,
if split into two, but if not, the consensus is no on that one. All right, so then to number 52. And that one, we were right down the middle again, 3-3. Nope, I'm sorry, we had 3 yeses, 2 nos, and 1 undecided.
I voted no because I don't know anything about New York City Police Department's school resource program. And how can I say that I want them to spread it throughout the state if I don't know anything about it?
Well, what I know, growing up there, they had a different department just for schools, school safety officers. I don't think they were the same level as a regular police officer. It was a separate entity that was patrolling schools alone. How is it now? I can't tell you, but when I was there, that was the norm. So I don't know how far they want to bring it up here, or what are they telling us to here? What is the resolution for that? They give us their guidance or give us their officers?
Yeah, I think it's a little gray area in that one. But what are they going to provide for us?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're not going to provide people.
Yeah.
And again, it's the cost. We're very lucky here in the district to have been able to figure that out with our corresponding entities, thankfully. Very happy about it, but some other districts may not have that opportunity. And without knowing what the financial impact would be on the district, I'm just not sure. I just couldn't vote for it at this point.
Is something delicate to look into, see what they say at the meeting?
Yeah, since we're really split with 1 undecided. So we'll question that, we'll listen to that, see what the cost is, what the plan is, and then vote on that one. All right, and then the last one. That is, no, that was it, wasn't it?
Can I know 53 is only a one yes. I'm really confused, well, 2 things about the language. That the School Boards Association work with school districts to rescind or modify the Board of Regents policy. So what was the Board of Regents policy that they're thinking of rescinding or modifying?
No Native American mascots.
Okay, so if that's their policy, they're saying, so this resolution is saying we want to rescind or modify that policy, right?
Correct. They don't like the Board of Regents policy. The way I read this is that the School Boards Association would work with the affected school districts, so example, Mahonison would be one, and others to rescind or modify what the Board of Regents has said, because it's Commissioner Rosa and the Board of Regents who have said those mascots must go. And so I'm guessing the New York State School Boards thinks that's too harsh and is looking to either have it rescinded or modified.
Okay. So we're collectively voting against that. We're saying,
It stands as the commissioners put it.
all right. And then I guess I would also question school mascots and imagery. I understand imagery, and if we're talking about Mahonison is a good example. Is if they say mascot, are they talking about the name? So they're like Warriors would be the mascot?
Correct.
So they can't,
Like the Red Raiders. Or
so it's
Guardians.
all or nothing. You get it. Okay.
I think that was it.
I'm actually surprised the school boards want to take
Right.
it on.
All right, that is it. Oof.
Good job, Mr. Chuck.
Thank you, everybody, for coming with that one. All right, so now we will select a voting delegate and an alternate for the school board annual business meeting. If anybody would like to be nominated or volunteer to do that?
Did Rick do it last year?
I'm sorry?
Did Rick do it last year?
Yeah.
He did, yeah,
And Ms. Sarah was his,
correct.
I would definitely be interested in doing it if nobody else is.
Who's actually going? I don't even know who's going.
well, this one's online, but to the board conference, is that what you're saying?
The school, to Oh, this is online.
This one's online, yeah.
Sorry.
It used to be there and then COVID hit and now it's a separate.
You're right.
So this is the 16th of October, 4 till whenever.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so
Kim, yeah, so Kim wants to take it.
Kim, all right, Kim Furnish, thank you. And who would like to help out as an alternate? I'll jump at once.
I'll do it.
It's a Monday night, so you don't have practice.
I'm good.
I think it was a great experience. My first year I got to go, so I think it'd be nice for them to experience this opportunity.
So is it Kim and Crenji?
Yes, Kim Furnish and Kern, yeah. Beautiful.
Just make sure you guys talk to each other so you guys are on the same page.
All right, great, thank you. We can move on now to a motion on communications.
I'll move communications A, staffing 1 through 10, and the placement of students with disabilities as submitted.
Thank you,
I'll second.
thank you. Any discussion on these? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? So moved. Routine business is done. Any other business? Anyone? If not, at this time, we will open up our second hearing and privilege of the floor. If anyone would like to address the board, please just state your name and address and adhere to the board's 5 minutes policy.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hoffmans, president of the Scotia-Glenville Teachers Association. I just, on behalf of the whole association, wanted to just take a minute publicly to thank the PTAs across all of the buildings. It's been a remarkable opening of school in 22 years of working here. I don't ever remember being recognized in the way that we all have been. There were opening day snacks at different buildings. There were breakfasts. There's celebration of completing the first month at the high school. It's been so lovely and so wonderful. I know teachers, it's been rippling all throughout the district. Everyone's been talking about it. And I just wanted to just take a minute and thank everybody. The efforts have really not gone unrecognized. I wanted you guys to know that. So appreciated. You can't believe how, like, something silly like just grabbing a little muffin or something, it's just, everybody's chatting and they're seeing each other. People came out of rooms and had conversations that excuse me, 12 days now on this, where they, maybe don't see all of those people throughout a day and had a minute to catch up and say hello or introduce themselves to a new staff member that was in our building because of that. So just thank you so much for that. It was really thoughtful, and I wanted to make sure you guys know it really was recognized. So thanks so much to all the PTAs.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Chris O'Neill, 133 Saratoga Road. I just wanted to comment a little bit on some of what I'm hearing back and forth about state exams versus Regents exams. And it just struck me that I know in COVID, a lot of things happened with Regents exams and how they counted or didn't count. And then the transition back to, I'm still confused as to whether they count or not, and whether we really even need to talk about whether it's a state exam or a Regents exam. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, my son took geometry last year, and he was under the impression that the Regents exam didn't matter. But at the same time, where I'm hearing where the social studies Regents is still something you have to pass to graduate. So I'm just really confused. And in my opinion, if you can pass the Regents exam, you should be passing the class. Shouldn't matter what you got as day-to-day scores in the classroom. State says you need to know this information. If you know it, you pass it, you should pass it. And then similarly, we've had heard conversations years ago in this forum in relation to homework and how much homework should count towards your final score in your class. If you can pass a final, if you can pass exams, in my opinion, without doing the homework, you shouldn't be penalized for that, because families may have other reasons for you to be home doing things other than your homework is work that home needs you to do, not necessarily homework that the school says or the teacher says you need to do to pass the class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Cremo, 37 Washington Road in Scotia. I was able to view the webcast before I came over, so that's essentially why I came down. I'd like to essentially piggyback off what Mr. Nagg said concerning the suspensions for football. I think at best it was a rush to judgment, and at worst it was arbitrary and capricious, to be honest with you. The kids didn't deserve it. I think there was some extreme exaggeration going on with what happened on that day. I understand that may have been distracting to the volleyball players, and we have to keep that in mind. But to suspend kids for part of a football game because of it, don't think that's fair. And I think that what actually happened is impacted the game. So you're impacting the kids that are playing, and you're also impacting the kids that want to come and support the game. That's just wrong. So I concur with what Mr. Nagg said. Right, and the other part of it is part of the punishment is they can't go to any games. They can't be spectators. So I don't know what that actually teaches them, to have them sit out for several months and not being able to support their teammates, their classmates, their friends. It's absurd, to be honest with you. So I piggyback on what Mr. Nagg said. There's another speaker that essentially made the same remarks about how it was unfair, but decided to go down another road. I won't touch that, but I just wanted my feelings to be out there that it should be looked at. And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone in particular, but it needs to be looked at because it really impacted the game and the kids, and it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect all the kids that play in other sports from here until the winter. So that's all I really have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have something completely off topic. Sorry, my mother just texted me. Hopefully you guys can answer this for me right here. I know you should be able to, unfortunately, Hal. What's the handicap? How can, like, my father get to a varsity game? Because he can't walk all the way from the high school or all the way from the industrial park side. Do we have a plan to get to the bleachers? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? I don't know how many of you have gone to the game. I know Ms. Schwartz, you have too. But you can't go from, like, the field house. Is that something you can answer now, or are you going to have to get back to me on that, or?
Get back to you on that.
I can't, the only thing I could think of is maybe pull up a little bit, like next to the field house.
Right.
And then.
Come down that path.
And then come down, right? Is that what you're kind of thinking too?
Yeah, but let me double check for you, Steve, and I'll get back to you.
It's same thing. Can I have a written answer of what I discussed earlier on why these kids are allowed to play with the code of conduct?
I will
Can you-
certainly look into that for you, absolutely.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Prue. I have multiple children in the school, one of which has already graduated. But I do specifically have two daughters, one in 10th grade and one that is in 8th grade. Last year, our athletic director was approached by Burnt Hill School District in speaking with doing the wrestling program for the girls. He opposed it at that point because it is a boys-only wrestling through Scotia. They don't offer a girls program. At that point, we encouraged my daughter, who was at the time in 9th grade, to go to the athletic director and speak with him. He at that point closed the door and informed her that she was too little to participate in wrestling with the boys, but would not be willing to offer a girls program. So this year, after multiple camps and events with Burnt Hill School District, I've reached out to their coaches, encouraged them. They have now reached out to Scotia, the athletic director specifically, to try to get a girls wrestling to work with Burnt Hills. My concern is that our athletic director seems to have a big issue with the girls wrestling. If he doesn't want to offer it for Scotia, that's fine, but we need to offer it like we do for swim, and we do wrestling with Galway. We need to offer a girls program for the girls that do want to participate, to which specifically want to participate. And at this point in time, as far as a closed room with an athletic director, I do have a big issue with it. I don't think that at any point that door should have been closed. And then to tell my daughter that she's too small and she might get hurt when she is the same weight as some of these boys, and she has wrestled bigger kids and has beat them. So I have a little bit of an issue with his handling of things, and I'd like to know how that is going to be handled in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board before? I always ask.
Terry Fivey, I live 21 Snake Hill Road. I understand the parents of the football players that were upset. I'm not sure exactly, it's none of my business personally, whatever their punishment was. I do know as a spectator, at going to several different games, that some of the students leaving other practices, I'm not specifically saying football or addressing that at football or any specific sport, they are riled up, excited, and they are attempting to support the girls that are there. Unfortunately, the other night's game, it wasn't just the students that were supporting the girls that had come from other practices. It was also other students in the building that were creating havoc outdoors, which caused the split of your chaperones to two different locations. At one point, the kids that were in the outer part that were doing things that is illegal, by the way, on school grounds, they were removed from the building, and some of the students, which is where the football players were sitting, let them in a door that was locked. Now you have a student, or a chaperone over here trying to control this. You got a chaperone outside trying to control this. You have the coach from the other team threaten to yank his kids off of the court, and until the entire bleachers were cleared. That's where this came from, because the opposing team was just absolutely mortified over the behavior that was going on, that he felt the need to send an email. And he felt the need to express the removal of everyone. I, as just a normal tax-paying person, likes to come down, and I like to participate in the school community by watching the sports that my children used to play, which is football. I like to go watch football. I like to go down and watch the volleyball team. I like to go watch the soccer team and things like that. It's very distracting when they're unsupervised and they are out of control. And specifically, that coach said that those children, not all of them, were disrespectful to the chaperones, and when the coach went over to like smooth it over, they were disrespectful then as well. Now, maybe they should have done more investigation, but if you have a school district that sends an email and includes your principal and your athletic director and the coach of the specific team that these people were supposed to be associated with, and they send an email that says, this is outrageous, they were disrespectful, you have to do something. Should they have included the parents and brought them in and had a conversation? Of course. I, as a parent, if someone didn't include me, I would have been just as mad. However, I want to go and I want to watch, and I don't want to have to put up with the nonsense that's going on. I don't want to have to get cleared from the gym because a handful of unsupervised children can't behave. I think we all should have the same right, and that is to go and participate as a taxpayer in these events that go on and enjoy myself. I like to go to the musical events. I like to go to the sporting events. What would be the punishment for them if you did nothing? What, you know what I'm saying? What would they get out of it? What would they get out of it if you only punished the kids that were in the hall that weren't on the sporting teams? What does that message send to everyone else? Seriously. If you're going to punish the ones that weren't on the sporting team and do nothing to the people that play football or basketball or whatever sport they play, what message are you sending your student body? If I play football, I get away with everything. If I play soccer, I get away with everything. But if I'm just Joe that plays the trumpet in the band, well, you know, I'm in trouble. So I don't know. Should they included the parents? Yes. I 100% agree. And I don't know what the punishment is because it's none of my business. However, I want to participate as a spectator, unharassed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? All right, at this time I will close. Oh, yep.
Aaron Aggs, 28 Hetherington Street. We're going to continue on the volleyball debacle from the other night. I think the board should know that, sure, kids are misbehaving. They probably should be disciplined, and you know, a thorough investigation should be looked into first from a variety of angles. I don't think you can watch a silent video and then determine who said what based on a chaperone that doesn't know the students, this one or that one. How do you discipline individual people out of a mass of people based on a video with no audio? Seems a little knee-jerk reaction to me. If they needed to be spoken to, they should be spoken to. A volleyball game on Thursday night where you address the kids Friday morning and you have a discipline action handed out by 3 p.m. Friday afternoon seems a little quick. You don't have time to read your emails. You don't have time to talk to the parents that were actually at the game. You went to the game, kids were crazy and out of control. Great. It was live cast on YouTube. I screen recorded the entire thing. You can see them. You know, they're rambunctious at certain points. They were spoken to. To have a coach come over and say, "This is my gym, shut up or I'm gonna kick your ass out," probably not the best thing to say. You're just gonna rile up students a little bit more. And then again, to punish kids based on a silent video, you're gonna continue to punish them. They were suspended for the first quarter of their football game on Friday. They couldn't start, they couldn't play. Okay, there, we're done. Now you have a select group of football players that are banned from coming to any home event as a spectator. So if there's 15 basketball games, we're going to punish them 15 times after one night. Are we going to punish them for every volleyball game? Speaking to volleyball players Friday night, they're upset because their senior night is coming and they feel like nobody's going to come and support them because most of the students don't want to go and then have to deal with some type of wrath of discipline arbitrarily based on hearsay. Thank you.
Lisa Strohmeyer, 7 Yorkshire Court. I would like to add to that discussion by saying that I was the coach that went over. I think there is a very drastic misconception on what was said to the students. If you would like the full recount of the evening, starting when I arrived at 4:30, I would be more than happy to put that in writing for you or have a discussion with you. I can assure you that there was absolutely no cursing of any kind at or towards the students. I absolutely agree that my athletes are very upset that they think that no one is going to come to their senior night. That is our last home game. That's the only one we have left. However, I can also tell you that being the coach that night, hearing my athletes, hearing parent complaints that evening, hearing other coaches, this is now the second time a coach has approached me about our spectators. That is very frustrating to me. You know, it's very inappropriate to have to deal with that kind of behavior and really be in charge of that event as the varsity coach. I am in charge of that event. I am putting that event on and making sure everything is ready. And I would like to just say from my own perspective that many discussions were had that evening. I personally spoke to students 3 separate times, and I saw our chaperones do their best to address it at least 5 times, as well as a parent. I can also tell you that I don't have any children in the district yet, and I don't know many students in the district, so I can't tell you who said what. I can't tell you what they look like. I can't tell you if they're in a certain class or playing a certain sport. I don't know these students well enough to do that. All I can do is tell you that it is very difficult for coaches on both ends to do their jobs effectively and to support their students when things like this are occurring. So I would like to go back to my original point from earlier in the meeting that I think as a whole, and I think it again goes back to section 2, as a whole we should be addressing how to teach these students the game that they would like to attend so that they can create a positive and excited environment and encourage their team without putting down the other team or making comments that at certain times that deliberately cause mistakes. And I think in a gym it's quite different. We are the only sport right now that's in the gym. I think it's quite different because you can hear all of those comments from the stands. They echo throughout the whole gym, even if the players are excited and loud. Whereas if you're outside on the turf or on a field or wherever they are, it tends to get drowned out being a little further away from where they're playing and also being outside. So if you would like more information on that evening, I would be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation. Thank you.
Lisa, when is senior night?
It is October 19th. May I also add one more?
Sure.
Like I said before, I don't know the students that were involved in it. I don't know all of the consequences that came about of this. I appreciate the support of administration having 2 coaches bring concerns like this. But I also think that, maybe the parents are correct and, maybe that is too long penalizing them, but maybe there needs to be some other way that these students can get involved and still go to, the volleyball games or soccer games or, and then in the winter, the basketball games and things. Maybe their parents should attend with them so that they have more chaperones. There are a lot of students that are attending these games, and it can be very difficult for just 2 people to have eyes on them.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm Amy Cremo. I'm president of the Booster Club, 1137 Washington Road. I've had 3 boys who attended Scotia who have played 3 sports every season, or each season played a sport. We have approached Jamien as a booster club, have talked about things that we can implement. Jeremy, Crystal, and I had talked to him in the past about maybe, like in Mechanicville, the PE teachers take 10 minutes out of their day, correct? Or not out of the day, but at some point, and discuss the ways that we should be cheering. I'm Tartan through and through. I love this school district. I don't ever really complain. I work here. I am been so appreciative for the teachers, the community, the coaches. To piggyback off what someone said, our varsity coach never told the kids that it was their fault for losing the game. He said it was a distraction. And again, I'm saying that in defense of him because he is an incredible coach. But we do need to do more for our student athletes, but I also think we do need to do more for the kids who don't feel like they can go to the games and cheer and say things without being talked to or yelled at. In the meantime, I agree that if there isn't enough supervision, but also I was at the game. I didn't notice or see the stuff that was happening. I went and approached the boys who were being told that they weren't behaving. I went and said something. My son walked out, so I can't I can't speak for everybody, but I did not notice the disrespect. But I don't know, maybe I'm not seeing what what everyone else is seeing. But I just think that there are things that the Booster Club, the athletic director and I could work, and all of us could work out to make things better for everybody. I don't like public speaking, so I apologize. But there are ways, and it is something that we have approached Damian about and would be willing to work with him through, and hopefully we can make that happen. But that's all. So.
Thank you.
I would just I completely agree with the last person that was speaking. The only issue I have is that should not be coming from the Booster Club. That should be coming from the athletic director, which I think is part of the problem with a lot of people. I mean, that's his job. And we don't pawn that off on a Booster Club. That's not their responsibility. Their responsibility is not to be talking to the students and tell them how to engage in sports. The athletic director should have that responsibility. He should attend games, and he should be doing it. I mean, that's part of his job description. If you go to work, you don't do your job, you get fired. I mean, part of his job description is to be doing this and to be addressing the coaches. The coaches should be, it rolls downhill, like I said before. As far as what the coach said in the huddle after the game, if I said the wrong thing, hey, that's fine, whatever. But you still, on a loss like that, your first thing that you tell your team isn't it was your fault, or if you guys weren't so distracted out there, or in those regards. I'm not blaming him. He could have been wrapped up in it too with the emotions. I mean, you have a coach here, obviously, that's saying this happened. You have other parents saying this didn't happen. Right there, if I knew nothing about this, and I really don't because my son wasn't there, I'm seeing that there's a discrepancy. I mean, I don't even know who's right and who's wrong, but you can clearly tell by everybody saying different opinions that it was obviously a rush to judgment, because you're not getting one opinion from 6, 7 different people that are saying this happened, this happened, this happened. You're getting 6, 7 different answers. I mean, everything I've heard is from other players on the team that were there or their parents. Like I said, my son wasn't there, and I just wanted to make those points after hearing everybody else. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Everybody. So quick, like I had thought about tonight, recusing myself right now to speak on behalf of what happened on Friday. Then I thought better about it. As those kids who are on that field, unfortunately, those that played youth football had to listen to me yell at them when they were 3rd and 4th graders that are now seniors and juniors. I've never seen something like that before. The amount of text messages that I got within a matter of literally 10 minutes from not only players, but parents and grandparents and people that work at the school with such variety of reasons as to what happened. But then to actually attend that game like I do all of them, and see those boys walk off the field the way that they did that night, that really bothers me. And I'm not going to get emotional, sorry, but it bothers me the way that they told me they were talked to and that they were treated for Scotia-Glenville. So I think before Mrs. Cremo had mentioned it, I saw Mr. Crystal here, and he spoke to me a couple of years ago about what Mrs. Cremo said, that they did go to our athletic director, because I'm a big sports guy. Those of you that know me, And if you ask me when the heck I'm supposed to cheer at a volleyball game, I have absolutely, I'm going to cheer the whole time when you're winning. You just get a great serve, you spike it, right? Kills, digs. I know a little bit. I'm going to cheer. I don't know I don't know that fact. Just like in other sports, golf and tennis, yeah, you're quiet for a minute and then you go crazy. So I think this is it's not an easy word, but it is a culture word that we need to work on here. And I think that's a big thing because we want to, as we see our studies that go down and people are leaving or people are getting homeschooled, which I still don't agree with. They can't play sports after 6th grade with. But anyway, another topic, another day. It's why are we, why, well, what are we banging our chests about for them to come here when something like this happens? And there's so many different versions of what happened, and to put the money in the school system for cameras, not be able to hear what actually happened, that's besides me a little bit. So I do think this is something that, as a district, not necessarily a school board, that's why I was going to talk up there for a minute, but we do need to look at, we do need to work with our athletic director, and we do need to work with the kids and the coaches to come up with a committee, another committee, Jeremy, that we can sit and we can figure out, this is what you do at sports, and this is why you do it at sports. And it's just not being about a better athlete. It's not always about athletes. It's about being a better person. And that's the big thing that I think we miss a lot when we are so fast to judge and we don't get all the facts. And that's what bothered me on Friday night at that football game, and then all day Saturday. And then at least my team won Saturday night, so we were that was a little bit to celebrate, but it bothered me all weekend knowing tonight was going to happen and this discussion was going to come up and how this would be handled. So it just goes to show that maybe we just act way too fast sometimes. And we stripped a young man of his captaincy that's worked his butt off, and that poor young man right now is very depressed and doesn't want to come to school, I was told today before I walked into this meeting. So that's a bigger picture than just what happened on Thursday night. So I'm saying I just agree with everything, but there's bigger things that we need to look at here than just saying you're not a captain anymore. That's got ramifications that are tenfold to a young man that's earned being captain on that team. All right, I'm done with my soapbox right now.
Would you feel the same way if it was, like I said before, if it was just Joe playing the trumpet?
Absolutely. So I was,
I think,
yeah.
like you said, that's definitely much to judgment.
Yep.
That it should have been discussion, should have definitely included everything that they got, and it should have included the parents and things like that. And maybe they should have made a decision Friday, because you didn't get the information until Friday, and who knows what time that email came in. My concern would be that when you send a message, when you send a message to one group, because they play football, then what are you telling the other kids? I mean, some of the girls, and I'm gonna put this out there, some of the girls, their response to the boys' behavior, boys are big boys. Really? That's the message we're sending our daughters and our children who do not play sports. 15, 16. I don't know if you got girls, but I had a couple, and I'm telling you, that would not wash my house. That blatant disregard because they're boys and they play football is not correct. And there should have been something, it should have been investigated, and it should have been inappropriate. Should the boy have been stripped of his captain? I don't know. I don't know. Again, what occurred to them is clearly not my business. What is my business is being able to go to the game and not having the entire thing stop because they have to go get talked to.
We're all in agreement with you on that part. And just so you know, I played the trumpet, and I was the president of chorus at Burnsville.
There you go. That's all I say is, no matter what it is, it should be fair and it should be put out there that's equitable.
At this time, do we need to go into executive session for anything? All right, so right now, the board will adjourn to go into a quick executive session that Ms. Carboni just moved. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. We appreciate it.